Jason Taylor, Board President. I'd like to welcome you to the Freeborn County Historical Museum Library. Historical and genealogical research can be conducted here. Our collections include all sorts of things from old books, photographs, fire maps, cookbooks, you name it, we got it if it involves Freeborn County. You can hire for a small fee someone to do research for you. Otherwise, you can come in and do it yourself by appointment. And we cover everything from genealogical type items to historical items. We look forward to seeing you here at the Freeborn County Historical Museum Library.
Well, hello. My name is Daphne Hamburg. I am a member of the board and am a native Albert Lea person. Born and raised here, and have just retired as a Lutheran pastor. I am here to talk to you about a resource that the museum makes available. It is called The History of Freeborn County. And it is not a fancy production. It is put together one individually at a time, spiral bound, extraordinary resource, absolutely extraordinary. I just want to share a few aspects of this with you so you're aware of the kind of resources we have. And so please listen to this information. First of all, this resource was published in 1996, and it incorporated the pertinent aspects of the Minnesota State Historical Society history of the state. It begins with the chronology of the state development, and it goes from 1659 through 1881. But obviously, the way the big piece was edited, this focuses on Freeborn County. And I want to share with you a few aspects of what's available in this book. And I had to put a list together because I realized I won't be able to remember everything. Location of the county, drainage systems, geographical and geological features, including specific towns and township information. There are reports on material resources and on glacial impacts on the county and on initial exploration. That is only part of what's available. Some bigger sections include these topics: early settlement, the Old Settlers Association, judicial structures, railroad development, the history of Albert Lea itself, and the history of Freeborn County townships themselves. Let's just say it's comprehensive. You do need to special order this. When I bought it a year or so ago, it was $45. But again, you get what you pay for. And these are produced individually, and so they are not cheap to reprint. I encourage you to make contact with the museum, at least ask to see a copy, which is usually in the museum store, and then make a decision about utilizing this, purchasing it for your own educational purposes. I want to thank you for your interest in the museum and for your support, and hope that your year goes well. Thank you very much.
I am Holly Karstens, and I have been serving on the board just since 2020. And I am currently in the Children's Learning Lab. It is a multi-purpose room used to provide children with a fun and hands-on environment to explore and discover Freeborn County history. The lab programming supplements our exhibits in the museum and in the village, helping children develop the life skills they need to be successful throughout life. How to think outside the box and tackle challenges, speak and listen, and play as part of a team. Learning should be fun, and children visiting the Freeborn County Historical Museum will be encouraged to explore and try new things and adapt and grow and play a game of Happy Days.
Hi, I'm Bev Leonard. I'm one of the board members here at the museum. One of the things that I really enjoy doing here is giving school tours and also working with Discover History. So one of the areas that I really enjoy is the dolls and the toys. Obviously, kids like to see them. Personally, for me, I enjoy reminiscing about the toys that I enjoyed, but it's also really good to learn more. And this new display that we have talks a little bit about the history of toy making, a little bit about history of dolls and other things, which I find really interesting. So this top section is just talking briefly about how toys change over time with the innovations that have happened, different types of materials. Perhaps some of us remember playing with metal toys. Some of us remember Barbies, which are obviously plastic. And of course now new innovations, a lot of the kids are playing with things on their tablets and things like that. But one thing that I learned just reading from here, toys are an $84 billion global industry. That's amazing to me. Then next we have a section of dolls, and obviously as a woman, as a little girl, I played with dolls. I had store purchased dolls. Before my time, people could make their dolls out of corn cobs, out of little cloths, handkerchiefs, whatever. Germany was really the country that introduced doll making to the masses because they came up with the idea of making these dolls out of paper mache. And so it became more affordable for people to purchase them. So we have a variety of different dolls and many, many more here in this area. And lastly, we have a section that talks about other toys, and these are really fascinating to me. Gordon Ramsay, who was an Albert Lea native, enjoyed woodworking even as a child. In his semi-retirement, he started making toys. So he ordered a kit of a Model A Ford, and the instructions said that it would take about 70 hours to make this. Wow. He said it probably took him a little longer than that, but the details that are in these models that he made are just amazing. And he also then came up with tractors, I think it says stage coaches, many more different items. So come see us at the museum, enjoy reminiscing and learning here in the doll and toy section.
Welcome to the Eddie Cochran exhibit at the Freeborn County Museum. It is updated and we would love to have you come visit. I'd like to tell you a couple things about Eddie. Ray Edward Cochran was born October 3rd, 1938 in Albert Lea. He took music lessons in school, but quit the band to play drums. Cochran was involved with music from an early age, playing in a school band and teaching himself to play blues guitar, playing country, and other music he heard on the radio. He played the guitar, piano, bass, and drums. Eddie was a handsome young man who dressed with flair, often epitomizing the rebellious attitude and stance of the 1950s rocker. In death, he achieved iconic status. Cochran's songs, such as 20 Flight Rock, Summertime Blues, Come On Everybody, and Something Else, captured teenage frustration and desire in the mid-1950s.
Hello, my name is Jerry Meyer. I'm on the board of directors for the Freeborn County Historic Museum, and I also participate in a lot of volunteer work here, which I greatly enjoy. One of the things that we should recognize here is a former board member and volunteer. His name is Kevin Savick. Kevin had a deep sense of history in Freeborn County and volunteered hundreds and hundreds of hours participating in a lot of projects. His main project was giving a lot of glassware plates to the museum, which is displayed here to my left. But his real contribution was his hundreds, maybe even 1,000 hours of collecting historical items from local newspapers, mostly from the Albert Lea Tribune. So he collected a lot of articles and photos and put them in 3-ring binders. So there's probably about 100 binders in the library, which anybody can go and look at. So Kevin's sense of history was very close to him, and unfortunately, he passed away in 2011, but his history contribution still remains with the Historical Museum here. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jim Munyer, and I'm on the Board of Directors at the Freeborn County Historical Museum. And I would just want to talk to you a little bit today about World War I. A lot of things happened during World War I, and I think everybody has some sort of an idea in history when it took place. It took place between 1914 and 1918. The United States entered World War I in April of 1917, and of course the war concluded with the armistice on November 11th, 1918. We oftentimes hear a lot about different units and different kinds of machines that came about during World War I. However, today we want to talk about the non-human combatants during the war. One of the things I want to talk about, first of all, are the war horses. Some of you perhaps back in 2011 watched the film, called War Horse. And it was about a British person whose father had sold the family horse to the British government to be used in the war. And of course, the kid, having his horse taken away from him, decided to follow up and then got reunited with the horse. And the horse became a very, very useful tool because we didn't have machinery as much as we have today. Most of the countries who fought in World War I used horses or mules or similar beasts of burden. So the war horse became a means of communication from one general to another, still not having all the cryptographic things that we have today in use during wartime. So the war horse was a very kind of a object that became very, very popular, of course, very much needed. In fact, the United States Army, up until the early 1940s, were still using mules. So it's one of those things that we oftentimes always think about the machinery part. Another part of that I want to talk about would be pigeons. Pigeons, means of carrying communication from point A to point B. Oftentimes telegraphs were not on site at the battlefield. And of course you need a pole, you need wires, and you string the wires and communication aspects that way. Oftentimes that was not very, how do you want to say, dependable. But the pigeon, knowing how to get from one point to another, was able to do that. We don't have a history as to how many pigeons died during World War I. We don't have a history of how many dogs died during World War I, or horses that died during World War I. But these are people, these were objects that were able to help the war effort, okay? So pigeons, war horses, or horses in general. And another one would be dogs, our old canine friends, all that lovable little family pet that you have at home who loves to just come up and sit on your lap and gives you all that unconditional love whether you need it or not. Sometimes you can yell at your pet and they'll come wagging their tail at you, and sometimes they'll look at you in fear and kind of back away. But at the same time, they're there for us. Oftentimes these messages, these little messengers, these four-footed messengers would go from general to general or from officer to officer, carrying very, very reliable information, maybe even maps of the terrain that was there for people to understand what they're going up against. But these are the kinds of things. Medicines for little animals like dogs were important, carrying some vaccine or some pills or whatever. But the communication was, and they always knew basically what they wanted to do when they left. They knew that their role was very, very well trained. And of course, today in our society, in the 2000s, we often hear about police departments that use canines for various reasons. Maybe something as bad as a cadaver dog being trained, or dogs that have been trained to ascend and find missing children and so on and so forth. So we have horses, we have pigeons, we have dogs, all kinds of things. You want to remember that during World War I, the British first invented the tank, and the Germans came along with the U-boat or the Unterseeboot, the submarine, those kinds of things. But these were all mechanical things, and we were still in that innovation of trying to find out how well they worked and so on and so forth. But the dogs, the animals that we had, use themselves, and we use them to further a war effort. So next time you're in Albert Lea or in Freeborn County, here, come see us at the museum. We'd love to see you. We'd love to have you. We've got a great new displays that are going up every day, new exhibits. We've got some things that are happening all the time here at the museum, so please come back and see us, okay? Thanks a lot.
Hi, I'm Jim Haney. Welcome to the exhibit for Albert Lea's own Marcia Ross. Marcia Ross has dazzled millions of people in the United States through her acting. She was an Albert Lea native during her formative years before moving on to California and becoming an actress. She has portrayed countless characters that have dazzled us. Marion Cunningham on Happy Days. She was on Drew Carey's show, and she was even SpongeBob SquarePants' grandmother. Please join us at the Freeborn County Historical Museum, Village, and Library to celebrate the career of Albert Lea's own Marcia Ross.
My name is Dave Mullenbach. I'm on the Museum Historical Village and Board as a representative of Freeborn County and Albert Lea. And from 1965 to 1975, television played an unprecedented role in shaping American perception of the Vietnam War, often called the living room war. New technology, unlimited access to the battlefields of Southeast Asia allowed field reporters the ability to broadcast what became known as the bang bang coverage. Television reduced the space between home and the battlefield with evening television programs, bringing the latest news to living rooms and kitchen tables across America. The carnage of the war and the consequences of American morale, both on the battlefield and the home, led to deep divisions in how America viewed the role of government, the military, social change, and the war itself. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Atchison. I'm on the board of directors of the Freeborn County Historical Museum, and I want to talk to you about the quilts of Freeborn County. Displays 9 beautiful sewn quilts from 1860 through 1940s. Bright and colorful, to dark and intricate. These quilts were made or cuddled under by people living in Freeborn County. Some tell a story about their owner, others show unique quilting choices made by their designers. All of them exhibit the talent and lives of people and family members of the people in Freeborn County. One of our favorites is the Lutheran Church quilt made by the Ladies' Aid at the Community Lutheran Church in Geneva in 1930. Members of the church paid to have their name embroidered on the quilt for the fundraiser. It cost 10 cents to have a name appear around the wheel and 25 cents to appear in the center. The quilt was sold at an auction and bought by Arthur Wayne of Geneva for a whole $25. There are over 1,000 names of people from Geneva community recorded on this quilt. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Paul Anderson, member of the Board of Directors of the Freeborn County Historical Society Museum and Village. Today I'm going to talk to you some about the immigration into this country and specifically into Freeborn County. This is a country of immigrants. Everybody came from somewhere else. My family came from Denmark and Norway. 3 of my 4 grandparents were immigrants. My aunt, when she started grade school, she could not speak a word of English, and her teacher could not speak a word of Dane. By the time my dad started school, she had taught him some English. So now you would think that that would be very difficult, but it turned out fine. My grandma never did learn to speak very good English. The people that came to this country, this part of the country, mostly came out of desperation, a lack of opportunity in the old countries especially in Norway and Denmark, and I assume in Sweden, and probably in Germany also. In Norway, the oldest son got the farm, such as it was, and the rest of the family got nothing. They had to work as sharecroppers, or lucky if they could find a job in the city. They came to this country through many ports. My family, some of them came through Canada. The port in New York, Ellis Island wasn't opened until 1894, and this part of the country was very well settled. My dad would tell me that the immigrants, like to settle in lands that look like home. I don't know, that's partly true. I think mostly they settled with where there were people that they could understand the language. I can't imagine them settling in a country or an area where nobody could understand you. So the Danes settled up by Clark's Grove, and some over in Alden. Germans were down in the southeast west part of the county near Conger. The Bohemians tended to settle down in the Myrtle area, and the Irish, who were some of the later people that came, settled in Twin Lakes and in Newry. The last immigrants that came from Holland. When the big swamp near Hollandale was drained in about 1920, they sold land to people from Holland that wanted to immigrate here and start farming. They got little 20-acre plots of land, which they did most of the work by hand, and so that was adequate. And you still would go out there today and you would find an awful lot of Dutch names in there. When the people came, they frequently brought a trunk like this. I hope you can see the beautiful rose mulling on the inside of the cover of this trunk. When they came, they had to bring everything with them that they needed, including the food. And that ocean voyage was probably several weeks long. I can't imagine. They brought their tools, their clothing, as well as the utensils they were going to use to eat with or to cook with. It must have been a difficult voyage. This particular trunk was brought by, I believe, the Hans Olsen family that settled in Haywood. Now you may notice that this top of this trunk is rounded. And the reason I've heard is that so other people, they couldn't pile other trunks on top of it. If you had a nice flat bottom top trunk, people would tend to settle stuff on it. And if you had to access your trunk on the voyage for your food, you'd have to move all the others. I am very proud of what we have here in the museum. This is one of the best county museums anywhere in the state of Minnesota. We have lots of things pertaining to the first people that came here. First people that came here frequently built sod houses. Now, I thought they were a kind of a cave, but they were usually built in the side of a hill. They cut the sod into chunks, probably a lot bigger than a brick, and they piled them together against the hill, and they lived in them until they could get a structure built, usually a log house. We have here one of the first log houses built in Freeborn County was to the Ole Livdalen family. I invite you to come out and see everything that we have. I'm very proud of it. Thank you.